talk about some changes that you and I have to make if we're going to really grow. There's a paragraph, I want to read it. Something in human nature tempts us to stay where we're comfortable. We try to find a plateau, a resting place where we have comfortable stress and adequate finances, where we have comfortable associations with people without intimidation of meeting new people and entering strange situations. Ron Osborne said, unless you try to do something beyond what you have already mastered, you will never grow. So let me give you 3 quick thoughts about your personal growth and your own development. Number 1, start with yourself. Again, just like in learning how to be a leader, you start with yourself. When you want to grow, you start with yourself. It all begins with yourself. I'm going to read the paragraph. The following words were written at the tomb of an Anglican bishop around 1100 AD in the crypts of Westminster Abbey. When I was young and free and my imagination had no limits, I dreamed of changing the world. As I grew older and wiser, I discovered the world would not change, so I shortened my sight somewhat and decided to change only my country. But it too seemed immovable. As I grew into my twilight years, in one last desperate attempt, I settled for changing only my family, those closest to me, but alas, they would have none of it. And now as I lie on my deathbed, I suddenly realized if I had only changed myself first, then by example, I would have changed my family. And from their inspiration and encouragement, I would have been able to better my country, and who knows, I may have even changed the world. But it begins with myself. Number 2, the second change that needs to happen is the failure to change at the right moment will provide the wrong result. So many times we fail to change at the right moment, and so therefore things don't come out as they should. Andrew Grove said there's at least one point in the history of any company where you have to change dramatically to rise to the next performance level. Miss that moment and you will start to decline. And number 3, growth guarantees an exciting tomorrow. Growth guarantees an exciting tomorrow. Last night we were having dinner. We came into El Paso late in the evening, so we went out and had some good Mexican food and had a wonderful time. And I'm sitting there with my Enjoy team, and we were talking about age, and I'm 53, and I told him, I said, I don't want to go back. I enjoy my age right now. I don't want to be in the 40s. I don't want to be in my 30s. I don't want to be in my 20s. 53 is good. And then I thought, well, but there may be a time when I get out there, 65, 70, I don't know. There may be a time when all of a sudden I say, I want to go back, but I certainly don't want to go back now. I'm enjoying the age that I'm in, and this whole process of a journey, and this whole deal of going. And one of my staff members looked at me and said, the reason you're enjoying your age now is because you still see a future. And all of a sudden it hit me how true that is. Personal growth. Personal growth ensures your potential in your future no matter what your age is. I know a lot of people. Do you not know a lot of people that are young and they've already stopped growing? Huh? Don't you know people that are alive? There are people that are alive. I just want to go up and do their committal for them because they're already dead. I mean, they might as well watch it. Well, hello, while you let you see your own committal. I mean, it's over for you. You got me, huh? So this whole process of growing and the excitement of growth and what it really does for you in your life. I love Andy Rooney and watching him sometimes on 60 Minutes, and he said, when I got to college, I looked back at what I'd done with such pride in high school and wondered how I could have been so young. And when I went to work for a newspaper and started cleaning out boxes of things I'd written for a college newspaper, I burned them hastily so no one would ever know how bad I had been as a writer. Over the years, whenever I've looked back at things I wrote in the past, they seem, how shall I say, June. That's okay for high school, college, and early newspaper pieces I wrote. But now I notice, I look at things I wrote last week and decide that this week I'm finally growing up and writing better. What am I going to think of next week? That's a picture of a person who's always growing. Now, let's talk about the environment. Let's talk about a healthy environment to grow as a person. Number 1, create a growth environment for your life. It's known as a fact that fish only grow to the size that will accommodate their aquarium. If they're given larger space, they'll grow larger. Let me define to you what I think a growth environment looks like. A growth environment is a place where others are ahead of you, where you are still challenged, where your focus is forward, where the atmosphere is affirming, where you're out of your comfort zone, where you wake up excited about life, where failure is not feared, where others are growing, where there is a willingness to change and growth is modeled and expected. That's the growth environment that I'm talking about, okay? Number 2, develop relationships with growing people. Develop relationships with growing people. Isn't it fun to be around somebody that is always learning? And they're just sharing with you what they're learning and the excitement of it. The other night, Margaret and I try to, as often as we can, invite growing people to our house for dinner. And the other night, one of the people I had over to our house, we had some wonderful people. One of the people was John Hagee, who is now in his middle 70s. And this guy has just developed leaders around the world, probably developed international leaders more than any other person living. And we sat at the table for 2.5 hours, and as we ate, he just talked about what he was doing. In fact, he was getting ready. He said, I'm going to have to leave early tonight because I'm going to fly out tomorrow morning for Singapore. And I mean, here's this guy, 76, and I'm looking at him, and he's just excited about life, and he's excited about what he's doing, and he's excited about what's coming next. And I'm saying, here's a guy who's going to live till he dies. And what I have found is my favorite people to be around are growing people, because it challenges me to keep growing, and it challenges me to keep learning and developing in my life. And when you grow together, when you get in a growth environment together, increased insight and shared joy and accountability, shared vision, worthwhile conversation, all that stuff comes in to when you begin to grow together. Now, let me talk to you about one more thing about the environment of the growth that you and I have in our life, and that's number 3. Understand that that growth is a process and not an event. Understand that this growth is a process and not an event. So let me talk about it for a moment. Let me talk about it for a few minutes, and then we'll wrap up. When I wrote my book, The Success Journey, let me just say something about when you write books. When you write a book, you send your manuscript to the publisher, and you put a title on it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what the title is going to be, because then they own the material. And so for the first several books I wrote, I always put the title of what I thought the book should be, of which I never had the publisher agree. You got the picture? So I'd write the book, I'd put the title, and they'd tell me that it was going to be another title. And when I wrote the book, The Success Journey, I'll never forget this, because I had written quite a few books by this time, and not one of them had the publisher ever taken my title. So when I wrote the book, The Success Journey, they wrote back to me and they said, we're going to call it The Journey to Success. And this one I couldn't handle. And so I remember I was still living in San Diego, and I got on a plane, and I flew to my publisher, and I sat down with them, and I said, we got to talk. We have to talk. I said, you can't call this book The Journey to Success. Oh, they said, yes, the marketing people say it'll sell better if we go. I said, no, you don't understand. There's no such animal as a journey to success. And for the next hour, I talked to them with great passion about success. I said, success is not a destination. There's not like a journey to success so that I get in my car of life and one day I arrive and I get out of the car and I say, I am successful. Success is not a destination thing. It's a daily thing. It's a journey. And so many times we think that if I could just have this job, if I could just move to this city, if I could just live in that house, if I could just marry that person, and we get all these things that we somehow kind of chase, thinking, if I could just get there, if I could just know them, I could just be that, all of a sudden I would be successful, and that's not the way success is. Success is a daily experience in our life. When I was talking recently at a graduation, I was again telling the graduates that in a few minutes when I'm done, you're going to come across this stage and you're going to be handed a diploma and you're going to shake hands with the president of the university. And you're going to walk off the stage and your family's going to meet you over there and they're going to be happy and clapping for you. And you're going to be in your cap and gown. They're going to get around. They're going to take pictures. You know what I mean? And they're going to congratulate. They're going to give you gifts and say, congratulations on being a success. I said, I want you to know, college graduates, when you get your diploma today, you don't become a success. Because we confuse the recognition of success with what success is. You're getting recognized for success when you get your diploma, but you don't become a success when you get your diploma. I said you became a success when you decided 4 years ago or 5 years ago to go to college. You became a success every day that you studied hard and didn't goof off and worked and studied for a test. I said you were a success every day that you were doing the right thing. It's just that today it shows up. It's like failure, folks. Failure is not a destination either. When I see people say, oh my goodness, the businessman, he went bankrupt. Oh man, his whole business failed last week. His business didn't fail last week. His business has been failing for a long time. It just showed up last week. It's like when I was a pastor and I came in the office one morning, there was a guy waiting on me. I'll never forget, he was sitting down and his hair was disheveled and his eyes were bloodshot. And anyway, so thank God you're here, pastor. And I looked at him and said, man, what happened to you? Oh, he said, I'm in trouble. I said, what's the problem? Oh, he said, my wife left me last night. My marriage failed last night. I said, oh, no. I said, your marriage didn't fail last night. It just showed up last night. It's been bad for a long time. You see, success is a journey. Failure is a journey. And the reason that personal growth is so important in your life and my life is because that's exactly what it is for you and that's exactly what it is for me. It's a process. It's a journey. 2 years ago, I had a heart attack. And I'll never forget in that process of the heart attack. The doctor, as I sat on the edge of the bed getting ready to go home after they had, I was very fortunate. And I'm asking the question, the big question, right before I go home. I'm saying, doctor, can I live a long life? And he said, John, I got good news and I got bad news. He said, the good news is you can live a long life. Oh, that's wonderful. The bad news is you're going to have to change some things in your life. Well, what am I going to have to change, doctor? Well, you're going to have to change the food you eat. You eat way too much fat. And he said, I'm going to give you basically foods that you can't eat. I'm going to give you foods that you can't eat. And I'm starting to make a list, and the thing that was bothering me greatly when he gave me the foods that I couldn't eat is he began to take away my 5 basic food groups. Things like chocolate and ice cream and peanut butter. Are you getting the picture, huh? Barbecued spare ribs. I mean, he's taking away life substance to me. And I'm listening to him, he's saying, you're going to have to make these changes. And I'm listening, okay, got that one. But he said, that's not all the changes. And I never will forget, as I leaned forward with real eagerness, and I leaned forward and I said, doctor, I said, you can count on me, I'll change my diet. And this older, experienced doctor looked at me. He wasn't trying to be cynical, and he wasn't trying to be sarcastic. But he just looked at me and said, no, he said, I seriously doubt if you really make that change. Because he said, I tell this to every heart patient. And he said, within 6 months, 85% of all heart patients go back to eating the same food that caused the problem the first time. And then he said, you also are going to have to exercise every day. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, I mean every day. He said, I'm not talking about 5 days a week. I mean every day you have to exercise your body. And I'm leaning forward again in eagerness because I've just had the heart attack. I mean, I found it's very easy to change. I'm ready to go on a diet after I've eaten a big meal. It's always easy to change right after the issue or the problem. And I can remember saying, okay, doctor, you can count on me. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to exercise every day. And again, he looked at me and he said, I seriously doubt that. Because he said, 90% of my patients that I tell them to exercise every day, he said they don't exercise every day. They do exercise for a week or 2 or a month or 6 weeks, but he said it doesn't last long. My wife Margaret was in the room that day. And as we drove home after that issue, I looked at her and I said, Margaret, I really do have to make some major changes. And I said, I'm going to do it. I got me a treadmill. I'll never forget, I got me new exercise clothes. I didn't have any old ones. And I got on my treadmill that first day, and man, I'm doing that walk deal, and I'm just moving as fast as I can, and after about 30 minutes of that, I'm just sweating, and I'm thinking, oh, was this awesome? I mean, I felt so physically superior. I went over to those scales, and I got on the scales, and then hard reality set in. I had not lost any weight. I had thought for sure I had shed at least 10 pounds on that treadmill. And the second day I got on that treadmill and I did my 30 minutes and I got off the treadmill and I thought, well, today the old scale isn't going to be able to handle the light boy. And I hadn't lost any weight. Then the third day I got on the scale and I did the whole deal, and I got on the treadmill, did the whole deal, and then got on the scale, and I figured, well, today surely it'll show up. And I had not lost any weight. It took me 4 days. 4 days. On the fourth day I got on the scale and it had dropped a pound. And I thought, at last. Took me 4 days for anything on the scales to show up. Now that was 2 years ago. That was 2 years and 40 pounds ago. And every day I still get on the old treadmill and I keep on moving. And what I have learned is that when you do something that is right, it doesn't show up immediately. And one of the reasons that we quit doing what is right is we want instant gratification. We want to exercise and lose 5. We don't mind any diet as long as it only lasts 3 days. We're all for losing 25 pounds if we can do it in about 4 exercise routines. And what I learned in this whole process of the heart attack and talking about growth is it's day in, day out, day in, day out. And it's not only with exercise, it's the same way with food. I've only cheated knowingly one time in 2 years on food. And I was on a flight from Atlanta to Seattle, and I hadn't eaten all day because I've been busy, not because on purpose, because one of my spiritual gifts is eating. And so I'm not one of these people that's into denial and fasting. When everybody's doing the 40 days fast, I'm not that godly, I'm not that spiritual. I was trying to do a 4-hour fast from lunch to dinner, and you know what I mean? I hold the whole deal, and I fasted 8 hours while I slept, and that's about it. But the only time I cheated as I was going from Atlanta to Seattle and I hadn't eaten all day, and I was on that plane, and the food wasn't stuff I could really eat, and so I said no, and I said no, and I said no. And we were about 2/3 of the way there, and they heated up some chocolate chip cookies. And I said, dear God, I do not have the ability to withstand temptation. So I ate that chocolate chip cookie without any guilt and said, that was so good. That was 8 months ago. Haven't had any more since. So I have cheated once. But I want to tell you something. Every day, I just do the same thing. Now, here's the key. And by the way, 3 months ago, I was at Emory University, and I went through the 6-hour test. They did the whole deal, checked with me, the heart rate, the whole thing, made sure the heart was still pumping. And they came out of Emory, and they said, John, you're in the top 4% of conditioned people right now. And they said, you're doing well. It's like you never had a heart attack. The damage is gone. I said, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Now, let me say, here's the key I want you to get today. Well, if you want to grow as a leader, it's a process. If you want to grow as a person, it's a process. And it's the day in, day out, step at a time that really makes the difference in your life and really makes the difference in my life. So here's the good news. If you start doing what is right today, you're already a success. It just hasn't showed up. Let me flip it. If you're doing the wrong thing today, and if you're doing the wrong thing tomorrow, you're already a failure. It just hasn't showed up. So what I want you to do today is make a commitment to grow as a person, to make a commitment to grow as a leader, one step at a time. Don't try to shortcut it. Don't try to do it fast. Hey, our problem is too many times we try to microwave leaders. And we need to quit microwaving leaders, and we need to start crock-potting leaders. Give it time. You need time to marinate. So here's what I want you to know. If you choose today to grow, if you choose today to start studying leadership, if you choose today to apply leadership to you, I can promise you it has potential to change your life. I know this because in 1974, a guy sat across from me at the Holiday Inn, and his name was Kurt Kampmeyer, and he asked me this question: what's your plan for growth? And I hem-hauled around because I didn't have any plan. And then he sat down with me and he showed me a plan. And that day he gave me the greatest gift beyond my own personal salvation. The greatest gift that I've ever received was the day this man shared with me that if I just do the right thing every day, one step at a time, I'll grow as a person. And that day I started growing. That was in 1974, and I've been growing ever since. So here's the good news. Every one of you can make a choice today to start growing. And then every day you make the same choice to start growing. Now, think about that person you're seated beside right now. Remember, we've already found out that they can become a leader. They can also start growing today. And the best thing for you to do is get in a group and grow together. You've been at this conference, get 2 or 3 people around you and say, do you want to grow? And by the way, some of you might say, no, I don't want to grow. I just kind of want to just die, okay? And that's your choice. But find 2 or 3 people that want to grow, and because that way you encourage one another. You hold each other accountable, and you really develop one another in your life. Because here's what I know. What you are going to become tomorrow is a determination that you make today. The secret of your success is discovered in your daily agenda. So here's my challenge. As a person and as a leader, determined to start growing today, and watch the process. And 5, 6 months from now, you won't even recognize yourself, because you'll say, I am now becoming the person that I've wanted to become. Does that make sense? You can do it. Thank you very much.